Hi, everyone. My name is Shashi Bellamkonda. I'm the host of the Talking Headless show. Very happy to have you all here. And this show was mainly created to elevate the profession of analyst relations and the analyst relations community. Today, we have a really fantastic lineup of guests. We have Kate Mauser, who leads analyst relations at Boomi. We've known each other for a long time, it feels like, but she's been in the business for over 20 years, enterprise software, AI, and data management. Previously working for large companies like SAP, Domo, Tableau, and I'm going to leave the personal interest aside because I want to ask her that question. And after the first episode, we'll have John Santaferraro, who's the CEO and head research analyst at Ferraro Consulting. This is almost like an international show because very often we have people from different parts of the world, and you'll hear from John where he's coming from. He's been an industrial consultant, another CMO turned analyst, and he's been working with companies like Google Cloud, SAP, etc. there. So with that, I'm going to bring up Kate up to the stage, and I hope you'll all join, post your comments and your questions for the panelists, and we'll also show them up on the screen. So with that, everybody, please welcome Kate Mauser.
Hi, Shashi. Hi, everybody. Good to be here.
Hey, Kate, so good to have you on the show after such a long time. I remember I wanted you to be on the inaugural show here. Yeah. So,
right? I know, which was over a year ago. Congratulations on keeping this going for this long. It's fantastic.
Thank you. No, this is really nice. So I like to start off by, I'm very interested in people's, career to where they are today. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how did you get into analyst relations?
Yeah, thanks. It's funny to think back on my journey because, like you said, it's been over 20 years, and analyst relations, there are some areas of it that's like exactly the same, and areas that are just completely unrecognizable from where it was 20 years ago. But I wish I could say I had this, grand plan and intended to be an analyst relations person growing up, but that's not something that, you hear about. You don't hear about what analyst relations is when you're, in grade school or in college even. So I think like most others, I sort of fell into this and then found it such a fascinating place to be, challenging and exciting, and an area where you're forever learning. That I've chose to stay here and make this my career. Right out of college, I started at Storage Tech, like you mentioned, and it was my first intro into analyst relations. It was a communications function, and I was supporting that role. And it really spoke to my skill set at the time, and the relationship building piece of this role was really attractive and a good fit. Being on the hardware side was interesting. I learned quite a bit about disk drives and the industry. But I switched over to software pretty quickly, went to JD Edwards, which was then acquired by PeopleSoft, and then moved over to SAP. Those are, large enterprises with global footprints in the high-tech space, and really spanning a lot of different technologies, from ERP applications to platform technologies, everything from security to content management to business
That's
intelligence.
quite a variety.
Yeah, right. One of the benefits of being in such a large company is all those opportunities. There's a lot of different ways you can slice and dice analyst relations based on discipline and area. So it was quite a exciting place to be at these large enterprises. From SAP though, I did move my career in a way that we had a great global team structured for the technology platform business unit, which was exciting to be managing that team. Moved to Domo, like you mentioned, which I kind of switched gears and was just a team of one person building an AR program from scratch. So it was very much a complete 180, and offered an amazing different perspective on analyst relations. So that was exciting, and what I learned from that was able to apply at Tableau, where when I came on board, the momentum was so exciting and so fast with the way Tableau was growing, that there was this just massive opportunity to grow and scale an analyst relations team for that company and the trajectory that it was on, to result in being acquired by Salesforce. So back at a large mega vendor, global enterprise software company. When the Boomi opportunity presented itself, it was exciting to see kind of another challenge, a company that has been around and established with an established customer base, but just being divested from from Dell, needed to rebuild the foundation of AR. So that's where I am now. I've been here for 3 years. And when I started, it's just myself again, a team of one. And it's been really exciting.
I was going to ask you that about, you've been through large teams, setting up your own organization, and then you come to Boomi, where you again start from the beginning. Like, what are some challenges that you can share with the community on, being the first person and then proving and then building up a team? How do you do that?
Well, when you're the first person or the only AR person, any mistake you make is your own, but you have full visibility into every aspect as well. So you can see the entire program, all the way across, from strategy to goal setting to creating and innovating. You can structure everything in a way that it's going to fit for that company's needs and goals. And very quickly, you're going to find yourself outgrowing what you're capable of delivering. If the company is growing, which you're hoping it is, right? You need to be able to scale with that, and trying to grow your reach, your influence, and grow the perspectives you're bringing back into the company. As a single person, you can only do so much, right? You can only reach so many people and talk to so many people, or only so many hours in the day. So it's natural to grow that team. And when I look at when we need to add resources, it's typically when that list of interest and influence, or the number of markets that your company is growing into, exceeds what kind of that is capable of carrying. Yeah. Uh-oh. I think I lost audio, Shashi, or you're on mute. Not sure.
Yeah, I have some background noise, there are some people working in the house, so that's why I put myself on mute. Thank you for...
No problem. I understand.
But I have watched you closely in Boomi, John and myself have been to the Boomi events. We have seen how much of executive involvement is there with the analysts and everything. Plus the fact that you've been able to increase your team there. What are some tips you can give the community on getting executive buy-in and showing value for analyst relations. And by the way, Gary, thank you so much for joining us and for the shout out. If anybody has any questions or comments, please post them and we'll make sure we'll answer them. Thank you. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, so you're asking about growing your team and executive buy-in. Yeah, when I look at growing a team, I think that what's really important is to have diverse thinkers who just are naturally curious. AR gets chaotic really quickly, right? We're managing relationships, there's launches, there's inquiries. We're in a really volatile market, at least in my experience. I've been in high tech for my whole career, and there's never a dull moment. It just moves so fast, and you have to have that ability to keep reinventing and adapting. So for me, it's important to have a team where there's room to make mistakes, to grow, to try new approaches, look at problems from a different angle. And I think that resonates with our kind of partners internally, that executive buy-in. When you're showing the value of AR, up, out, down, around, everywhere across all functions, it's important to have that ability to make mistakes and put that value and surface those insights when you can, and see how that works with your executives. Executive buy-in, it's funny because I think back in the day, analyst relations was a hard function to measure. I think putting a metric behind a function that values a partnership or a relationship used to be a really hard thing to do. And we used to have a joke where our main KPI was just, let's try to not have any big surprises for our execs, right? Let's try to make sure there's nothing super negative that they're not aware of that just comes in at them sideways, right? And that is still really important. But I think there's been this turning point where we really can start to measure relationships. There's so many new tools available to do that. And while there's there's the evals and the magic quadrants that you can look at as a measurement, that's one perspective, right? So there's a totality and a bigger picture that our executives are looking for from the analyst community as far as insights and perspectives, so that they're aware of what's happening with market trends and opportunities.
Yeah, this is a question that's top of mind for me, and for the audience, we haven't discussed this question, but you said something about as the number of products and markets grow, right?
Yeah.
What's your advice to other analyst relations professionals? Should they divide their teams based on product, or are there other ways of doing that, or is it just one single team? I mean, I'm just looking for some guidance or your opinion on that.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's, like you said, there's so many different ways you can slice and dice. I remember being organized at one point by analyst firm, right?
Okay.
And then we worked across all topics at the company or all markets at the company. And that really gives you that full picture. And then I've been on teams where we've been organized by business unit, or we've been organized under marketing, and our priorities are more focused around building mind share and growing brand. Been reorganized under those business units where you're much closer to strategy and the functions that are looking at, do we build, buy, or partner? There's so many different ways. I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way to organize your team. You have to consider the skill sets you have on your team and consider the goals of the company and where trying to make the most impact, or where you can make the most impact. But that there's no one size fits all in analyst relations. And there's so many variables, and you've seen how this market has shifted so much from last year to this year, even. What was important last week might not be important next week, right? So it's a lot to ask of your team to stay agile and flexible, and adapt quickly as things shift. But I think that that's pretty necessary these days.
No, that's great. So I think like these are at least two ways that you could organize teams if somebody was starting new. Great. You talked about being agile, and one of the things that I took away from the Boomi conference was also the Boomi companion, that is actually a skill that was outsourced, and probably anybody can use it. Uh, how are you and your team using AI, like, to do things? I know there's a lot on every analyst relations team. So how are you using AI? Is a question.
Right. Did we get 16 minutes in without mentioning AI yet? Was that the first time? That's great, right?
Yeah, that is great. Is it?
Right. Yeah, I think that, any keynote you go to right now at any tech company, or any industry event right now, AI comes up really early in those keynotes. It's so important to consider those applications and how they can help your function. And AR is no different than any other in this regard. It's really changing the market, and I think it's impacted AR just as much as any other space. What I'm seeing are some definite concrete use cases where it can help with administrative heavy lifting. As you mentioned, there's this ability to build skills in Claude, and you can find that setting those skills with custom guardrails and structure, really provides some consistency for AR teams, when drafting plans or templatizing or operationalizing recurring AR tasks. I do find it's a little bit more helpful for those recurring tasks. But we're at this place now where it's like, if you have an idea, let's try it. Let's put it in action and see. So you're only limited by, I think, your creativity here, because the technology is surpassing our ideas at the moment. We're kind of like, wait, now we're here. We can try that. And if we've collected the data, that, I don't know if you know this, Shashi, but most AR people kind of collect as much data as they can. When did we have the interaction? Who was it with? What was the sentiment? We take notes. We try to look at what insights we can gather from those notes that we want to surface. What recommendations will we have from that? There's this whole workflow that comes with briefings and interactions. And we try to capture that data as well. And now with AI, there's just a million different ways you can layer that data for insights as to how to make your program more efficient, or where to prioritize your time. So it's not just a tool for that administrative heavy lifting, but it's a tool to help contribute to your decision making and strategy.
That's very cool. Yeah, I did. I'm so glad that you have a wonderful team with both Colin and Barbara June, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been lucky throughout my career. I can tell you, the AR community is a really amazing place to be.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard from conversations with other AR professionals is also like AI has been immensely helpful in setting up meetings, or at least a schedule for different analysts. I know that's such a huge task for people, right?
Scheduling tools. Yeah, a lot of thoughts about scheduling tools.
Yes, that's true.
You know, a lot of companies still do them manually. Like they'll build out spreadsheets with matrices, and excuse me, I'm super bright right now. But they'll build out uh, things manually into spreadsheets and then manually build out agendas. And this is an area now where AR can do that. AI can do that for you. So it will free up your time just to spend thinking through the content, the objectives. Are we building, the right flow and infrastructure at this event so that there's value for the analysts as well as the executives and customers that they're meeting with. But yeah, a lot of I still see a lot of manual work going into events.
And it is a lot. Now, one question: since you've been in this industry, what advice do you have for new people who are thinking about AR as a profession? I mean, it doesn't have to be their first career, but I've seen a lot of people in different professions also move into analyst relations. What are some attributes that they should carry with them? What constitutes a good AR person?
Yeah, I think if you're lucky enough to fall into AR right out of school, you're going to be set up for success here. It's a space that I see is typically a pretty lean organization, but highly strategic. And it can be an amazing launching pad if you have a passion or interest in an adjacent space like marketing or even product management or communications, executive communications. I've seen AR folks move in all different directions based on their skill set and passion after getting exposed to these different functions. So my advice, I think, to new grads that have been exposed to AR or have the opportunity to experience analyst relations right out of school is to listen, build relationships, build that network. It really can launch you into almost any other function that you're passionate about. So stay curious, ask a lot of questions. I mentioned the AR community. It's a big community out there, and we love to talk shop. So get involved with an AR community if you can find one, and never stop learning. We're kind of in this constant phase of change, and it's an amazing place to just continue to learn.
That's true. I think one of my previous guests had suggested agenda-less meetings between analysts and AR people, because, like I might have posted for this session, is like even if an analyst leaves a job or an AR person leaves a job, usually the relationship keeps continuing.
Yeah, I've got relationships that go back from the very beginning of when I started in AR, back with Meta and AMR analysts. It's this world sometimes can feel really big, but it can also feel very small, and that community is important. It's also really exciting though to meet brand new analysts. They come with fresh perspectives. It's just keep your options open and your mind open.
Very nice. Now, Kate, I have to ask you, like, AR isn't your entire life. So what do you do off the clock? What's your passion?
Oh, the other fun stuff. What's more fun than analyst relations, Shashi? No, I do love analyst relations. Honestly, it's an area I've been in for my whole career, and I've stayed there for a lot of reasons that I've already talked about. But analyst relations, when I'm not traveling at an industry event, I do try to hit the beach. I'm lucky enough to live in San Diego, and we've got amazing marine park out here that has some incredible scuba diving, which is my passion outside of work. I try to go scuba diving 2-3 times a week. And it was actually an analyst who encouraged me to kind of keep going with my certifications, and became a scuba instructor 4 or 5 years ago. And from that have also expanded into doing some underwater photography, which has been a lot of fun trying to capture everything we see underwater and try to identify what they are and what kind of fish. So it's my passion outside.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see your photos in National Geographic. Over the weekend, I went to the National Geographic Museum. And
Did
it's
you see some underwater photography
yes,
there?
and
Yeah,
people who have that as a passion. So this was great chatting with you, but don't go away. We'll next guest will be John Santaferraro, and then we'll bring you back for some final thoughts.
sounds great.
All right. Thank you so much, Kate. So with that was a wonderful conversation. I learned a lot. I hope you all did too, especially with the experience and kind of answers that Kate gave about her experience and how to get executive buy-in. Now I'm going to bring in another special guest to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, meet John Santaferraro. Said, hey,
Hey,
John, how are you doing?
Shashi, good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. And this is probably an international show, right? Where are you joining us from?
I'm about 30 minutes west of Florence in Tuscany.
Wow, that's a new country for us to have a guest from. So very cool, John. How are you doing today?
It's another beautiful day in Tuscany. I wake up every morning and say the same thing. It doesn't get old.
That's true. And Gary, a good friend of mine, Kate, he loves San Diego and he'll be there in September. So great. That's really good. So, John, you had a very interesting career. I mean, I know about it, but I'd like the community to get to know about you. Talk to us about how you became an analyst and your entire journey through technology and where you're today. So,
It's probably similar to everybody else. I started as a youth pastor. So I was 10 years as a youth pastor and then co-founded a data warehouse software company with a couple other guys and have been in technology ever since. So most of my
you
career
continued God's work there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent most of my career on the vendor side in product marketing as a chief marketing officer. And about 8 years ago, joined a small analyst firm called EMA, Enterprise Management Associates, was there for 3 years and then went independent. So I've been doing this now for about 8 years. But it's really interesting, Shashi, because I would say that 15 years ago, even as a product marketing guy, because of the internet, there was a shift when suddenly everybody's opinion about the industry mattered. And I was in product marketing, but I could be the press. I could cover news. I could be an analyst in determining trends, where things are going. And so that shift, I think, happened 15 years ago. So I was already a product marketing guy, self-professed journalist and analyst at that point.
That's very cool. So what made you become an analyst?
I had this experience of being able to predict where things were going and to be able to see them early and to identify trends, not just the trends, but the trends that were going to stick. And I had done it with analysts. And so at a certain point 8 years ago, I thought I could do this again. I remember sitting with Mark Beyer from Gartner. I don't know, I think it was 2011 or 2012. And we were having this great conversation about, how the data warehouse is no longer the single source. And I was working at Parexel, and it was, we needed to justify the existence of an analytic platform. It's now Redshift, by the way, at AWS. And we came up with this concept of the virtual data warehouse. And it emerged in our conversation, and of course, Mark ran with it. But I already saw that happening at that point before it became a thing. And this happened a couple of times over, and I finally realized I think it would be really fun to get just to go in deeper into the analyst world. And so that was 8 years ago when I joined EMA.
Very, very nice. I think there are a lot of companies that could use more analyst relations, and there are a lot of companies that could interact with analyst relations a little bit more. So this question is more for companies that haven't yet started engaging with analysts or probably don't have an analyst relations function. So, what is the value that analysts bring? Educate the community that's not yet engaging with analysts.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. At the top of the list is influence with potential buyers. There's research capabilities to actually have numbers and more factual kind of information behind what you're saying as a company. There's advisory, just being able to get, to be able to confirm go to market and competitive and things like that. We, as analysts, we get briefed by, almost everybody in the data analytics and now AI industry. You can't say all the AI industry, but so we gain this perspective of the marketplace that analysts can validate for you as a startup or as a mid-sized company, your go-to-market efforts. And then I think that there's on top of that, there's the thought leadership stuff, the being able to co-author thought leadership, being able to utilize the thought leadership of the analyst community to be able to develop your own thought leadership programs by identifying with certain trends and certain analysts. And then analysts create third-party content that is more trusted by companies, by potential buyers than your own. You, as a company, you can go out and create your own collateral, and that's getting easier and easier. But the analyst community provides a third-party validation to it that ends up being more trustworthy for your buyers. I'm sure I'm missing something there, but that's a handful at least.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you're missing is also very important, which is AI-powered search brings up different viewpoints. So it'll obviously bring up content created by analysts. So you made some very good points. You've actually interacted with a lot of companies. What are some best practices you've seen with analyst relations, and how do you want analyst relations people to interact with analysts like yourself?
Yeah, I at the very top of my list, the best analyst relations people understand the different strengths of the different analysts. Not every industry analyst is alike, and there's certain personas, right? There's some analysts that are really good at research. Others are really good at thought leadership. Others are really good at sort of strategy and go to market and understanding the industry. Others have a marketing background and can help, evaluate your go to market. Personally for myself, my greatest strength has been in messaging and positioning. And I have a program that I use called Impact Messaging that I've been using for almost 20 years now. I developed it in product marketing, and I've used it with a number of different companies, all the way to Fortune 5 companies down to new startups, to help them, position even in their early seed rounds. Every analyst brings a different, and so if the best analyst relationships per people to me are the ones that have really figured out how to identify what each analyst does well, and to recognize we are not all one profile, one persona.
Yep, that's true. Continuing on that length, what have been some approaches that you really liked from analyst relations, and how have you built these relationships?
Yeah, I mean, well, having been in this industry for 30 years, it seems like the relationships that I have developed over time. So I think that there's a benefit to that. But some of the things that I really like about that have been good experiences for me are the The analyst events, of course, are a great way to really connect with a company and go deeper than you can just in a briefing or in a series of briefings. So those are good. I was really impressed with, in SAP does a thing where before their big Sapphire conference, they invite in about a dozen analysts, and they bring in all of the people who are going to be doing the keynotes, and they run all of the messaging before us as a group of analysts, so that when they stand up on the stage, what they're saying, they have this one time a year where their audience is all right there with them, virtually and on site. And when they stand up to give those messages, they've been battle tested. They've been torn apart. And the analysts don't always agree, right? I was the last one of these that I did, Shashi. It was, I think it was everyone else against me. But I'm sorry. I'm not gonna like kowtow just because I don't agree with 11 other or 12 other or 15 other analysts. I'm gonna tell you what those kinds of discussions that SAP curated were really powerful, I think, for them to be able to fine tune their message. I think that's a great. That was one of the best experiences I've had with the analyst community. And the other part is just communication. It's like communication. Just let us know. My pet peeve, Shash, I would love to get your opinion on this, because and this may not be popular with it, but these analyst portals, I hate analyst portals. It's like when everything gets stuffed into a portal and I get this weekly summary of what's in the portal. I literally have stopped covering companies just because I refuse to go and just be the one to look around the portal to figure out what I need to know to cover that company.
That's a great question. I think there are people who like the portals too. For example, like if they hear about a company and they want to go back to, hey, where was the announcement? That may be one single place. Plus, some of the content is also very exclusive to only analysts, and it's not published. So that will be another good thing that's there. So I think we have a question from Julie. Like, she's been dying to know what analysts really think about the analyst portal. I think my answer is thank you, Julie, for the question. My answer is that it can be the only single source. It can be a repository for people to go to if needed, but I think, like you, I would prefer a direct communication whenever possible. But thanks for bringing that up. I do go back to the portal whenever I say, like, hey, I have to either search my email or look for more information there. Sometimes thinking about the analyst relations end of it, if there is only one person, it might be a little bit more easier for them to use a portal than probably an email communication. But this is something that should be debated to make it very easy. I think that's a point well taken. Thank you for bringing that up. And thank you, Julie, for the question. Do you want to add anything to what Julie asked?
No. I think that's it. I do think that I understand the concept, right? But this is analyst relations. And at the point that you take the relationship out of the equation, it breaks down. And I believe that there still is a lot of importance in the human contact and in an actual relationship between analyst relations and between us as analysts. And otherwise, you can just change the name and call it analyst communications, right? Or analyst. It's not relations anymore. It's a portal.
That's true. It's an important point. Like both, I met you the first, we were attending a conference together. There's a lot of camaraderie between both analyst relations and between analysts, even if you work for different companies. I think that's good. So the relations part of it is important, and you can just depend on the portals for that. That's good. Now, other than that, what other industry trends have you seen in the past decade or so that has changed and maybe made things easier or otherwise? So what trends have you seen?
From an analyst perspective, one of the things that has been really helpful for me is not AI in general, of course, and I can tell you 10 ways that I use AI, but I have really loved using the Notebook LM feature, and I'm sure that ChatGPT has something similar to that. But I keep a notebook for each company that I cover. So all of my news goes into a Notebook LM, and it basically then allows me to ask questions when I want to go back. Instead of going to the portal, I take what I've put into Notebook LM, and I can just ask questions. What were the last 5 announcements? Boom, boom, boom. I mean, they come right out because it's AI concentrated specifically on what we put in the notebook. So I've found that extremely helpful. Just especially as an independent industry analyst, I don't have the big Gartner, Forrester, IDC databases.
Yep, I think that's a good aspect. I feel like research time is actually reduced a lot because you don't have to go link by link, and you can get a lot of things. So I agree with you. How do people contact you, John? And what are some channels that you think work best?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is on LinkedIn. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm open for conversations there. You can also, go to ferraroconsulting.com and communicate with me through the info@ferraroconsulting.com or john@ferraroconsulting.com. I'm pretty easy to track down.
Yeah, that's cool. John, you said you started your career as a youth pastor. You're probably continuing a little bit of that work. Tell us what you do outside of work.
Well, it's a good question. My wife and I came here to Italy not just for la dolce vita, right? The sweet life. We came here to help Italian couples experience really beautiful marriages. And so we host retreats once a month. So we both work full time. They call them in Italy, they call them smart workers, right? Remote workers. But we have a passion for helping people have beautiful marriages. So we give back. That's why we're here in Italy. So yeah, that has continued. I didn't leave being a youth pastor and never touch that part of my life again.
That's true. No, that's very cool. And for the audience, if you have any questions for both of them, the next segment, we are going to bring Kate back again and have a conversation. So if you have any questions, please put them into the comments box, and we'll be more than happy to play that there. So Kate and John, you both don't need any introduction, but I'm going to call this segment when a scuba diver and a youth pastor walk into an episode. So,
I think we both enjoy pasta and wine. So
yes, we do have other things in common. It's good to see you, Kate.
Great to see you, John.
Yeah, that's true. So I think Kate wanted you to weigh in on the portal discussion that we had. What is your opinion?
I could probably take John's words and use the exact same phrases. I can see your point though, Shashi. For a small team, it could be a great way to organize content and to reach a broader audience of analysts. But to John's point, you're not customizing content at that point. You're not taking into account the analysts as their unique persona. You're putting them in as one profile again, which John said that's not how it works, right? So I do find also with portals, there's a bit of a maintenance aspect to it if you want to keep that content fresh. But it has to the portals that are out there and the people that use them and that are pro portals, it has been a long time since I've looked at the current portal offerings. So I will say my exposure and experience working with portals is somewhat dated.
No, I think that's an important point. I think the point that I'm getting from both of you is you have to customize your interactions with analysts. Yes, use portals for a repository if you need to, and especially if you don't have enough manpower. I think that's a point well taken. Yeah, that's true. And talking about advice, like John, if somebody were to look for, I mean, if someone wants to become an analyst, let's say 4 years ago I wanted to become an analyst, like what advice would you have given me? I'm going to ask you the same question too, Kate.
Yeah, I would say start acting like an analyst, because there's a lot of things that analysts do that no matter what else you're doing, you can begin doing. And I remember when Kevin Petrie first approached me and wanted to know, well, what do I need to do to be an analyst? And
He's with Bark, right?
He's with Bark. And at the time he was product marketing. I don't even remember the company, but I remember just when he talked about some of the things that he was doing in product marketing, we quickly identified a bunch of those things that he had to do, the competitive research that he was sponsoring with analyst firms, that he had been involved in creating, the thought leadership creation, messaging and positioning, literally the things that he had been doing. I think that's why you also see this movement back and forth sometimes between somebody that is in product marketing that becomes an analyst and goes back to product marketing. And yeah, so I think there's, just start acting like an analyst.
That's true. Kate, what's your advice to somebody who wants to be an analyst?
I think it's pretty similar to somebody who wants to be in any research focused role, really, which is to stay curious, listen, ask questions, never stop learning. Most analysts that I work with, I'm not going to speak for them, but I don't think it's about the paycheck, right? They're naturally interested in learning about this market and analyzing it. So I think that if you're staying curious and asking questions and listening, it's natural that you're going to start forming opinions that are based on indicators in the market that you can back up, and people are going to be interested in that perspective.
That's true. That's great advice. Never stop learning. I have to keep remembering that every day, Kate. So Gary has a question. Do you feel the same way about quarterly newsletters from vendors? What do you all think? Thank you for your question, Gary.
Kate, you want to go first on this one? All right, I'll jump in. I like the quarterly updates. I feel like that's a good way of summarizing and putting together what has happened from a vendor, and it helps me get a sense for how the company is thinking about their strategy as well. I remember a quarterly update. I'm not going to name the vendor that I got it from, but I got this probably about 2 weeks ago, and it only had the bulletins of what had happened over the quarter. And from my perspective, what they had done in the last quarter was pretty significant. But in the quarterly newsletter, they didn't position it well. They didn't put the pieces together to say, "Wow, look at what we have achieved." So I love the quarterly update, but I think it needs the story. It needs the story to bring it together as well, not just the bullet points.
It's true. Kate, any insights?
Yeah, I'll echo John's, John's advice there as well. When you're structuring your newsletters, why does it matter? Why are you sending this? Just like any internal newsletter that you do for your stakeholders internally with insights, why is that relevant? Why are you sending this? What is it that you're saying that from that insight that applies to the company or to an opportunity, or what recommendation is there from that insight? I think the same thing goes with these external newsletters. If you're just sending a list of things for people to click on, you're missing an opportunity to highlight why it matters and why it's differentiating and what value it's providing customers. So use it as a good opportunity. And there's ways and tools out there where you can see, is this hitting the mark? Does this have the right level of information for the analysts? Are they curious and clicking on customer use cases? Is that important to them? Or are they just looking for product updates? And again, to John's point earlier, which honestly is going to stick with me for quite some time, I think, analysts are not all one profile or persona, right? So these bulletins, you can, I think, really communicate and distribute great updates and insights to the analysts of what's happening with your company to a broad group, but know that they're not all going to be interested in everything in that, right? There's going to be pieces that are going to be more relevant to John, maybe about go-to-market, versus pieces that are going to be more relevant to someone else who has that maybe more technical background or has a broader scope or a vertical focus, right?
That's true. I think one secret weapon that everybody could use is probably LinkedIn. Like in my experience, I get more news from following CEOs of companies where they post the news first. So that's another channel I'm sure could be used too. We're almost at the end. This was a very insightful discussion, and thank you for your questions, Julie and Gary. If anybody else has any questions in the next few minutes, I'm sure our guests will be happy to answer the questions. But in terms of trends, are you seeing that the information cycles are becoming much faster? So even when you think about quarterly, it may not be enough because of all the developments that come at both analysts and analyst relations faster. What are your thoughts? Kate, you want to go first about like handling so much of information that's coming to you, and then you've got to communicate to your audience?
Yeah, I do think things are faster, but there's so many different channels and methods and ways to communicate now that you've got options. You don't need to just blast emails every week with whatever the latest update is. Lots of different ways to communicate so that you're not just using one medium over and over again. But yeah, I think it is faster. It's a lot to consume. And I'm sure folks that are on the consuming end of all this information are using their own tools to not sitting there reading every single thing that they're coming across, right? They're using tools for summarizations, pick out what's most important to me and let me know, surface it to me so I don't need to click on things. Yeah, I think that's definitely, things are definitely fast and speeding up.
Thank you. John?
It's an interesting question, Shashi, because everything is moving faster except people. We still, and I take it, my brain's a little bit older than both of you guys, but
you can be sure of that.
we can only process information, even if it's summarized, again, it goes back to analyst relations, right? And for us, it would be vendor relations. The relationship is super important. So even when in that massive amount of information flow and information increase, I don't want to get to a point where vendors are producing everything using AI. And so my only way to respond to them is to now use a bunch of AI, but then AI creates the response to them. then there's no value left in that interchange. So it requires us as analysts and as analyst relations people we're the ones who have to cut through the noise and the speed of information and the speed at which the technology is moving to get to the stuff that really matters. That's why we will still be here in 100 years when AI is doing so much more than it is doing today. That's
true. Yeah, this is great insights at one of the conferences that I was at, and with Kate, we were talking about the importance of having analysts and analyst relations face to face, and meeting. So at this conference, the benchmark that I used is when you exchange family photos, or at least show them to each other, you have really achieved a pinnacle of a relationship, right? And that moves. I want to thank you both. Such a lot of useful information from your own perspectives, your experience. This is going to be very useful. I want to thank the audience for your questions. And please feel free to recommend names of people that we should have on this. I'm so happy that we got Kate and John on this. Any last thoughts, anyone?
Just to thank you, Shashi. Thanks for having us. Great to see you. Great to see you, Kate. Really good to do this with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming out in July and everything. This has been a lot of fun. Look forward to hopefully another time down the road, Shashi. And thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.